do you agree that what is happening, this is genocide against Ukraine?
Yes, 100%. Well, I would call it mass murder. I feel it. I look at that damage and I see those kids dying and I think, what did they have to do with this? I'm sure you feel this because you're Ukrainian, but you want to shake everyone's shoulders and say, wake up. Sometimes you think like, oh, most Russians don't really want to have war with Ukraine and most Russians really want peace. And no, I don't think that's actually true. You say it's going to upset Russia. What do you mean upset Russia? They're already viciously attacking the Ukrainian people. Upset them. Like, how about like beat them? I just want to see Ukraine kick the crap out of Russia, quite frankly. The Americans haven't figured out that what they need to do is provide the Ukrainians enough material, and I mean hardcore material, to kick the shit out of the Russians. Not hurt them, but like send them crying home.
Hello, Charles.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much that you found time for me and my small YouTube channel.
I would always find time for you. Are you kidding? You're terrific.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your Ukrainian guide, Olena, and in this video, I have a great honor and pleasure to talk to a Hollywood producer, like a Hollywood superstar, Charles
Well,
Wessler. You may know his movies Dumb and Dumber, Dumb and Dumber 2. There is something about Mary. Well, these movies are too funny for me, honestly, Charles, but I loved your movie Green Book. It's
Green Book.
really Green Book. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Thank you.
And also recently, Charles became the ambassador of light for the Ukrainian nonprofit FFUNSDGHelpUA.org.
Putin's grotesque and vicious war against the people of Ukraine has been raging for about 10 months now. And the people of Ukraine are living on the very edge of survival, and they need our help now.
What Russia is doing in Ukraine, how would you call it?
Well, I would call it mass murder. You call it a lot of things. There isn't one sentence that describes what's going on, but I would say that it's indiscriminate murder of civilians. It's interesting that when the war started, everybody thought that Russia was gonna, has this incredible, the second best army in the world. That's saying a lot. I mean, when you think about it. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be terrible for Ukraine. People, they're going to lose this war in a week. And they didn't. And it was because they have a bigger sense of who they are in their tiny little brains. And what they didn't expect is Ukraine to be so kind of brilliant about their approach at defending their country. I mean, seriously, it's brilliant. Whoever's been running the government and mainly the army are geniuses. I mean, they don't have anything compared to a normal, army to fight Russia.
Charles, why do you care about Ukraine?
When I watched the news and suddenly out of nowhere, there was talking on the news about how there were, remember it was there were training sessions or, on the border near Ukraine, and they were massing 200,000 troops. And they said, no, we're not going to hurt anybody. We're just training. I thought, that doesn't make sense. This whole training bullshit. I didn't buy it. I don't think anybody seriously bought it, except it did surprise some people. I don't know why. So since that point, I've always hated Putin, by the way. Quick backstory, if I might. How much time do we have?
I have plenty of time.
Oh, okay. I went to Russia about 10 years ago. And I had a friend who was living there, and I went to visit him in St. Petersburg, and then I went to visit Moscow. But I was sitting over a period of like 10 days in St. Petersburg. I had dinner with a lot of different people, and we could talk ideas. And I said to some of these people, men and women, and young people, not old people, I said, why do you put up with Putin? Like he's a killer. He's an asshole. He's a there's no, you started with democracy 25 years ago, and now you have nothing. You have Putin. And they said, yeah, let me explain to you, Charlie, why. Yeah, go ahead. They said, because the Russians need a strong-fisted leader. We don't do well at democracy. We need somebody who can tell us what to do, how to do it, when to wake up in the morning and when to go to bed. And I remember thinking, well, that's the most pathetic thinking I've ever heard in my life. you bought into this insane notion that you need a despot asshole. Excuse my language, but that's what he is. He's a psychopath. He's an idiot. And I thought, you know what? Fuck you. Fuck all the Russians. If you really believe that, then you deserve what you have. You know, because you sometimes you think like, oh, most Russians don't really want to have war with Ukraine, and most Russians really want peace. And no, I don't think that's actually true. I think most Russians, a small portion of Russians, get it. They understand, obviously, that what's going on is bad for Russia. It's bad for them. It's bad for their kids. But a strangely large amount of, a high amount of Russians like Putin. They respect him, and that pisses me off.
This is why we are so different, Russians and Ukrainians. Russians always had wanted a strong hand. Now they always had a king, Tsar. Ukraine never had it. Ukraine had Cossacks. Ukraine had democracy. Ukraine even had it before America had it, and we were always kind of democratic. It was always a mess in Ukraine because of it. We were always arguing between each other, but there was democracy and equality, and this is what we were always standing for. Russia is absolutely different.
The Russians see the world as against them, and really not. If you want to be Russia and you want to live your life just the way you have for the last 30 years, go ahead. I don't care. I really don't care. But now that they're attacking this little country who have no hard feelings against Russia at all. In fact, again, I believe that Ukrainian people 8-10 months ago felt like I do, which is go ahead, live your lives. So the fact that they're attacking this little country with, I don't know, I mean, call it the underdog thing. I just want to see Ukraine kick the crap out of Russia, quite frankly. And I think that we as Americans, and by the way, the Swedes and the French and the English and everybody in that area need to do a lot more. I would take Biden over Trump, even if he was blind, let alone, let's face it, he's slowed down a bit and his brain is fogging up a lot. So his mistake is he's getting terrible advice from his advisors about not giving Ukraine the long-range HIMARS and not giving them F-16s and not giving them M1A1 tanks, and I could go on with the list. You say it's going to upset Russia. What do you mean upset Russia? They're already viciously attacking the Ukrainian people. Upset them. Like, how about beat them? And I feel like that the Americans haven't figured out that what they need to do is provide the Ukrainians enough material, and I mean hardcore material, to kick the shit out of the Russians, not hurt them, but send them crying home. They're not going to drop an atomic bomb. There's no generals who are stupid enough to listen to Putin to drop a tactical nuclear weapon on anybody, because that's the end of it. It's over. That brings in, I don't need to say it. People who are watching this understand what would happen. So this fear and this scaremongering of Putin and his friends, that I've been watching this for a long time. Since day one, they've said, well, we have nuclear weapons. Like, I don't give a shit what you've got. You're not going to use them. They can't. I mean, they can, but that's the end of Europe and Russia. Gone. It's finished. The Chinese will be super happy and they can live their own lives by themselves. At any rate, I really just want to see I want to stop. I want to see an end to the missiles flying into Kiev and all the other towns around Ukraine, which have nothing to do with this war. And people in the United States are very, and all over the world, they've got their own problems. And so after a couple of months of a war in Ukraine, they start to get a little bit distracted by other things. And it concerns me a lot that the average American, the average Swede, the average whoever, Canadian, they just, when they see a missile explode and half destroy a giant apartment building, which happened a couple of days ago, they don't feel it. But I feel it. I look at that damage and I see those kids dying and I think, what did they have to do with this? Nothing. And yet, listen, they did this in World War II. The Germans bombed London. the Americans bombed Hamburg into dust. It's a thing. It's not a smart thing, though. It's pathetic. Sorry, I just went on.
Do you agree that this, what is happening in Ukraine, this is genocide against Ukraine?
Yes, 100%.
I know that you have something to do with the Warsaw Ghetto Museum, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'm on the board of the Warsaw Ghetto Museum.
The reason why this Auschwitz and Birkenau and Warsaw Ghetto Museum exist, the reason why they exist, yes, we want to remember the atrocities, and the message is never again, right? So this year, they will be marking the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Again, the main message will be, yes, never again. Why remember these events? Because we say never again.
Sure.
But what we see in Ukraine right now is that this is happening again. We have another genocide that is happening right now in front of our eyes. And if in this Warsaw Ghetto Museum, there is a big lack of evidences, yeah, and many people back then were saying, we didn't know what's happening. Yes, and even now, we do not have enough photographs and videos of these mass graves and mass killings and everything, all of these atrocities. Right now, we watch it live. There is plenty of materials in the internet. We see the photographs and videos of mass graves, unknown graves. We see the vehicles, civilian vehicles with the plate children, and the holes from the Russian bullets on these vehicles. People, civilians were killed in them. We see tortured bodies of people in the basements, in the torture rooms. We see their hands tied and the holes from the bullets in the back of their heads. We can interview raped women and even raped children. All of this, so much of evidence is right now, but for some reason it keeps happening. Charles, when I was, by the way, I wanted to become an actress when I was young, but for some reason I ended up to become a tour guide in Chernobyl. And when I was showing people this Chernobyl exclusion zone, I was sure that this is something important, because I was telling them, people, that you see, this is the history lesson has to be learned. Yeah, never again. If you mess up with security at the nuclear power plant, here what you have contaminated area. So let's learn the lesson. The message of the Ghetto Museum, let's learn the lesson, but will it be ever learned? That is
No,
my long question.
no. The answer is no, it will never be learned. I mean, listen, I hate to say this, but people in general aren't particularly smart. And like I said, people are interested in their own interest. And their own interest in many countries is getting a Volvo. I don't mean to be too depressing, but never forget is a lovely idea. I'm Israeli also, and I lived in Israel for 4 years, and I'm a citizen. And of course, I was lucky because I moved there in 1971, and I had lots of friends who had the numbers on their arm, and they were younger then, and so you could talk to them, and we could tell stories, and to answer your question, even in Israel, I'm not even sure that Israelis today get that concept of the history of the world, right? And then if you look at recent history, which we're talking about Germany, who murdered millions and millions of people, and then let's face it, Stalin murdered, I think it's 12 million people of his own people. The concept of never forget is that people just forget. And I wish there was something that I could do personally to just wake people up. You kind of want, I'm sure you feel this because you're Ukrainian, but you want to shake everyone's shoulders and say, wake up. Well, the problem is that the average person that goes to Auschwitz or Birkenau or Dachau or whatever it is, they're not in charge of the planet. You know what I mean? Like, and also, can you imagine if Putin went to Auschwitz and he took the tour? he would admire the Germans for their thinking. It wouldn't help us at all. I just feel like I said, it's just what I believe. I believe that people in general, after being really worried and really concerned and gung-ho to fight Russia and have Ukraine win, lose their interest in 2 weeks. And then they don't give a shit anymore because we're an island. We're all an island. I mean, I know it sounds mean and cruel. I don't, that's not how I feel. I'm just saying I believe that the average American just doesn't give a shit. I mean, they don't care. And that's sad. It's horrible. People are always after their own interest first, and then they'll give 5 minutes thought to Ukraine. So that's why that's why you're doing this interview with me now, is hopefully 5 people will watch it. I'm just saying, hopefully 100 people will watch it, but they'll say, you know what, I do give a shit, and I'm going to get involved, and I'm going to write my senator, and I'm going to write the president, and I'm going to get involved as much as you can. By the way, every day I write about 5 emails to the president of the United States, and oh yeah, every day. This is something that is terrible. This is crimes against humanity in a large scale. But I don't mean to bum you out, but I just don't think people get it. Yes, some do. Me and another 100,000 Americans, maybe, and some Swedes. But I don't think, I think most of the world support Ukraine. Some of them can't admit it, but that's it. It's not about don't forget, and but sadly, and I know you didn't ask this question, but here's what I think. And again, I think this is sad, but it's the way everything always works in the modern world. I mean, modern meaning the last 200 years. Is that the war will end, and I am 100% sure that Ukraine will be victorious, and that I don't know what's going to happen in Russia, but it will be what it is. And a couple of things will happen. There'll be all kinds of inquiries by the Western world as to all the crimes that the Russians perpetrated on the Ukrainian people, and the murders and the atrocities, right? What you just talked about, and the torture, and 2 people will go to jail in Russia, maybe. And then Russia will be like Germany in 1946, 47, where they said, for the next 10 years of your existence, 15 years of your existence, Germany, you have to pay back these different entities, including the Jews. And people don't know this, but the Germans paid, I don't know how much, but millions of dollars to Israel, and as compensation for 6 million dead. But I think that's what's going to happen, and it will not be spectacular, and it'll be pathetic, and because I think humanity is, I don't know. I used to believe in it, but I don't so much. I mean, I think in general, good will beat evil, but there will never be true satisfaction. I don't think. I'm sorry. I mean, this is why I want them to give them long-range HIMARS, and I want them to give them long-range anti-radiation missiles, and I just want them to kick the shit out of Russia. Here's what I'd like, and I know you probably don't agree with this, but I'd like to see a couple of giant explosions in the middle of Moscow, just so they could go, oh, this is what it's like to be tortured every day of your life. I feel like they need to taste it so they understand what they're doing to you and the Ukrainian people. I know it's the wrong way of thinking, but I feel about like that.
Why is it the wrong way of thinking? Why?
I don't know. I was always taught that, you should.
On the New Year Eve, on the 31st of December, Russians put some artillery just on territory of Belarus, at the border with Ukraine, and they S-300, S-400 missiles. They fire it in a minute, 2 minutes. This missile already hit residential buildings in Kiev. And Ukraine is told, do not attack Russians outside of Ukraine. I mean, they put their artilleries on their side at the border, and they are killing people, and they are doing it like almost for 1 year, and they do not care. And, the West expects some kind of revolution in Russia, but how do you think this revolution will happen if Russians feel, okay, there is no war there? They do not taste it. They do
Oh,
not feel any danger at all. They are fine. They just watch TV. And they see that how powerful we are. Look, we destroyed this, we destroyed that. Everybody's afraid of us. We have nukes. We have strong leader. They feel fine. Revolution will not happen in Russia. And yes, I want them to feel how it's like, because only force, they understand only force. I'm sure neither want you nor me, to like children suffer and like civilians to be killed. And maybe that is the main difference between us and them.
I think that is it.
Really destroying these airfields and military bases that Russians, absolutely freely have so close to the border of Ukraine. Yeah, maybe I'd like to see Kremlin burning, but it is my own personal fantasies, but the airfields for sure. Yes.
But
So you
it's
say
weird,
that
though.
USA has to be involved? Sorry.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
So my question, do you think that America needs to be involved in it? Or maybe America has its own problems here, like unemployment and other things.
Wow. By the way, Chris, we do have problems. Of course, and if you talk to half the Americans, but we have to remember, we're an island. People always, I don't know if they forget, but Americans forget. We live on an island. No one ever attacks us. We didn't get attacked during World War II. We didn't get attacked in World War I. We sent troops to Europe because we knew it was the right thing to do. And I say we, I mean our leaders in those days. I wasn't born yet. But right now it's the same problem, is that Americans don't know the taste of what the Ukrainians are going through right now. They don't understand. They can imagine it and they can pretend they understand it, but they don't. I do know, because I was in the army and I was on the Golan Heights in 1973. I know that feeling. I know what it's like to watch my friends being bombed in northern Israel. By the way, I'm not a Zionist or anything, and I don't even believe in God. But when I was young, I was very gung ho, and I wanted to be a member of the IDF. But the real thing here is, I understand it. Most Americans don't. I think if you talk to a guy, it doesn't matter. The point is that I don't know how political decisions are made, and I don't know how international political decisions are made. But sometimes people just do the stupidest shit. And yes, the answer to your question, if this was your question, I think not only should the United States be very involved militarily, and by the way, we don't have to go to Russia to defend Ukraine. If we just sent 50 F-16s and 150 M1A1 tanks, and by the way, I could go on with a list, and long-range HIMARS, because here's why. Not because you can shoot them into Russia, but because you could stand way further back with the long-range HIMARS and shoot them. By the way, they're good within 10, 20 feet of their target. They're an incredible weapon. Now they just need to give a couple thousand of them to the Ukrainians to use in a good way. Anyway, yes, the answer is we need to be very involved, I think.
Why do you think it's not happening? Why do you think America is not given all of these things that could stop the war really quickly?
It could put an end to it, because by the way, we humiliate the Russians. I mean, we really do. I hate to say it, we have the best army in the world. It's technologically, it's light years ahead of Russia, and we have 2 tanks for every bullshit tank that they have. We could crush them in weeks. We could, especially now that Ukraine has degraded their army like by 60%. Ukraine has done I just want to say this, and I'll answer your question. Ukraine has done a more than a remarkable job in almost defeating Russia. They're this close. They just need a little help. But why US hasn't gotten involved, I can only imagine is that the people who are in charge of telling the president of the United States what he should and shouldn't do, his advisors, are mistakenly advising him that it will lead to atomic a nuclear war, and that they feel that that's just not useful, is to have Europe blow up. But I disagree completely. I just don't think that the Russian generals who really press the button and who really send, by the way, you know about tactical nuclear weapons, you know what they are, right? They're nuclear weapons, but they're for smaller spaces. You can destroy, this is disgusting, but you can destroy a quarter of Kiev, like whatever that means. That's what they're talking about using. They're not talking about these, 50 megaton things that destroy Washington, D.C. in its entirety. But I think they're scared that the use of that would just be, I guess, the beginning of the end, and they're scared. And that's it. It's just fear. And they've bought into the whole Putin, I'm not afraid to use nukes. And that's bullshit. I don't think he has the choice of using them or not. I think his generals do. There was an incredible article about 2 months ago in the New York Times, and it was leaked. A conversation between 3 of the United States generals who are in charge of everything with 3 Russian generals who are in charge of everything in Russia militarily. And they said, listen, we're going to continue to supply Ukraine, so blah, 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 blah. And we want you to know that if you use a tactical or nuclear weapon, that will mean that NATO will attack you. That means we have no choice but to attack you. With everything we've got, we're not going to use nuclear weapons. And by the way, they said in the article, they said to the Russians, we will never use nuclear weapons. There is no point in using nuclear weapons. That we don't want to destroy the world. It's a terrible idea. But they did say, if you use a nuke of any kind, all bets are off. We're fully in. And I think the Russian generals know that. Well, they were told that very clearly. That's not a commonly known thing unless you read the New York Times. But I think that put the fear of God into the generals. And there's really nothing they can do because, they basically, people always say, they want to compare leaders to Hitler. And if you do that, it's like, oh, you've gone a step too far by calling him Hitler or calling them Nazis. I'm sorry, but he is Hitler. He's just a different height, and he's Russian instead of German. He's a psychopathic lunatic. Why is he doing this? You got to ask. Somebody's got to ask. What does he gain from this? Nothing.
Your movie, Green Book, it was about dignity, it was about equality, it was about non-discrimination of individuals, of human being based on gender, race, sexual orientation.
And learning. Like the guy at the beginning is a racist. He's definitely a racist. And then he learns, oh, wow, this guy's a friend of mine. He loves him at the end of the movie. They love each other. But I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes, sexual.
The idea is never give up learning, like teaching people what's important. And there will be always, devil and God, light and darkness, but you know on which side you stand, and you fight for the values that you stand for. And I'm a very pathetic person and naive, but I believe that what's happening right now in Ukraine, the future of the whole humanity, civilization, is being decided right now in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And this is something, that's the most important, these events in Ukraine, they are the most important at all, more important than anything happening right now on our planet.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. Let me interrupt you for 1 second and say this because it came into my head, and sometimes I'm very old now, and so when I have a thought, I better get it out of my skull now. But when Christina, who runs the group, I don't know how we got to know each other, but we did, and I agreed to help try to raise some money. And I'll say this, because talking about do people care and people not care, and I guess there is something about the film and television community that has a lot of empathy and understands what it means to be a woman with 3 children and stuck in a bunker for 10 months and then hearing bombs going off. They get it. I don't know how they get it, but they get it. But you'll be happy to know that I went to, and I'll just say this, I can't say names because blah, blah, blah. but about three of my friends who are, I would say, are the three of the biggest movie stars in the world. I called them up and I said, listen, we need your, I need your help. I don't, but the Ukrainian people need your help. So, and I know, okay, you got to dig deep. All three of them said, oh, I gave to United 24, to Zelensky's group. And by the way, we're talking like $100,000 each. It wasn't like they gave $50. They gave it, and by the way, and they still gave me $500 for my request. So the answer is, yeah, there are people out there who are, you saw Liev Schreiber. You know who Liev is? He's the actor with the whiskey. He's an old friend of mine, and he's been doing absolutely incredible work, helping just raise awareness and money, by the way, which is kind of great. And there's a few people you've seen them going, and they meet. You've seen lots of these sort of movie star types going into Zelensky's office. I always find it sort of amusing. Like I'm sort of embarrassed by it. Like, why the hell should he be meeting with that person when in fact he's busy trying to save a country? Those people should just go meet. They shouldn't meet him. They should meet the people who are suffering. That's where you should go. But anyway, that's my opinion. By the way, but I give them credit for going. I mean, it's fantastic. So I don't want them to stop going. I want them to keep going. I'm sorry. I got carried away there, but I just wanted people to know, like, with all my negativity, I was refreshed. And by the way, nobody that I've gone to has turned me down for money so far. They may not be giving me a lot, but they're giving me something for Ukraine.
Why have you decided personally to get involved with this organization, nonprofit FFUNSDGHelpUA.org, with such a long and complicated name? What touched your heart?
Well, I mean, I think it's really just what we've been talking about for the last half hour, or more. This is going to sound very petty, what I'm going to say, but aside from the obvious of the geopolitical problems that this creates, and I always fight for the underdog, and there couldn't be a bigger underdog in this fight than Ukraine against Russia. It's ridiculous. I can't even believe it's happening. It's incredible. This is why I can't understand why the president of the United States isn't doing something meaningful. By the way, got to give him a little credit. He has sent. They have turned, without the United States over the last 8 months, Ukraine would be done, because they have sent these. No, it's true. I mean, those HIMARS can destroy something within 10 feet. Those Javelin missiles destroyed 300 tanks. Like, it's something, but they're just too scared to go all the way. And my take is, go all the way. What are you worried about? Come on, we're going to win this together. And that's what I feel like. I just feel like I look at you, and I look at the people that I see on television, and it's the classic underdog. You're not supposed to win. You're never going to win. It's not possible to win, but you're going to win. And I love that. And I'm just sorry that so many people have to be tortured and murdered and have their entire lives destroyed. It's not just the people who are dead. How about what I'm looking at is, they every day, and I mean every day, they fire missiles that completely demolish an apartment building. Well, there's 200 families that have no place to live if they survive the bombing.
One more question: as a Jewish yourself, Ukrainians right now, we often compare ourselves with Jews and Israel. Do you think it's like correct? Is there something in it?
Well, yeah, by the way, the underdog thing, if you look at Israel back in 49 or whatever, then you look at how they've progressed, and and you're surrounded by people that want to crush your head, and they want to destroy. When I lived in Israel, there were like 3 or 4 million people. Now there's like 8 million people. But it was a very frightening thing to be literally surrounded by armies that were 5 times the size of your army, and they all wanted to kill you. And by the way, they just said it every day: we're going to destroy Israel, we're going to destroy Israel, we're going to destroy Israel. So the answer is yeah, I do see very much the only thing is that I'm going to sound like I'm anti-Israel. I'm not anti-Israel. I love Israel, but they're dealing with the Palestinian problem in the worst possible way, and I have great sympathy for those people who can't live a normal life. And Ukraine is hurting nobody. Ukraine isn't torturing any other people. They're just trying to live their lives in their little country and build things. And are they perfect? No. Are there bad people in Ukraine? Yeah, there's a few. But basically, they're good people. They're not trying to hurt anybody, and they're getting pummeled by these asshole Russians. But as far as the basic thing, yeah, it is very much like Israel, because technically Israel shouldn't have survived the last 50 years. That's just a truth. I could go talk about that for a long time, because I know a lot about it. But yeah, I hope that the Ukrainian people understand that they are very much like, and I know there are Jewish people living in Ukraine, and obviously I know a lot of people in the United States who come from Jewish Ukrainian histories. But I hope that people do associate with hold on, I gotta do this thing. I hope they do see the similarities between Israel and themselves. It's survival, and it's I think they've been talking about it. In Israel, it's true. When I was a kid, 19 years old, and I was on the Golan Heights, they'd say, look, if we lose, we're dead. We're all dead. We're all gonna be, it's over. And it's the same thing with Ukraine. There is no losing. You can't lose. There is no losing in Ukraine.
I wanted to say something smart, and I and I forgot. I forgot something.
You
really
did say something smart.
I did. You think so? I don't know. Our interview sounds so depressive, honestly.
Say
Like
what?
this interview sounds so depressive to me, honestly. It's like,
No, I didn't mean to be depressing. I just wanted not to be bullshitty and fake everything's up fat. The positive. Let me just recap one important thing. It sounds like I'm being very depressed and very depressing, and I understand. But I've said this a few times, and I want to remind you. My main focus is, and my belief is, that Ukraine is going to win. I just don't want to be I want to be a realist. Realism is, oh yeah, the Russians are going to cause as much pain as they can. Sorry, it's just the way it is. What this is happening right now. I don't have to make it up, but we're going to win. And in the end of the day, America will wake up, and they are going to provide the weapons that Ukraine needs to really make a difference. And they're doing it now, but they're not enough. Like, by the way, I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on a tangent. 1 second, okay? I remember about a month ago, they said, we've decided we're going to give, what are they called? They're not tanks, but they're like tanks. Bradley fighting vehicles. And we're going to send, I don't know, 50 of them. And I'm thinking, first of all, they go, yeah, and they'll be there in 6 months. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, no, they should be there like next week, and there should be 200 of them. This is the thing that drives me crazy. However, what that means is they've changed their minds. 6 months ago, they never thought about giving the Bradley fighting. By the way, just so you know, the Bradley fighting vehicle is a really fantastic weapon, and it'll be used really well, and it's going to kill a lot of Russians, which I know I shouldn't be saying on a YouTube channel, but it is. It's going to hurt them a lot. And there's other things that they're sending, and I think hopefully they'll start sending some F-16s and stuff. The list I gave a small list that I texted you. But no, I don't want you to be depressed. I mean, of course you're going to be depressed. You're Ukrainian, you think, but Ukraine will survive, and in 2 years they're going to start rebuilding a lot. And guess who's going to pay for it? Russians. I promise you, this is what's going to happen. I guarantee it. I'll give you $50,000 if I'm wrong. No bet. I'll just give it to you straight out. The Russians are going to pay for new buildings, new houses, new electricity, new roads, I know they can't bring back the lives that they've murdered, but they will pay for the rebuilding of Ukraine. And it'll give me great pleasure to watch them do it. So all that oil money and all that potash money is going to go to rebuild Ukraine that they destroyed. So at the end of the day, it's painful, but it's going to work out.
Yeah, I feel as a Ukrainian, I feel a lot of frustration that it's not happening like right now, that America is given so much of help, but so slowly, and you have to persuade that this is something that's very important for all of us. So I feel very frustrated as a Ukrainian because we are targeted only for that we are Ukrainians. This is a genocide against us. The same as Jews were targeted 8 years ago because they were Jews, and without
Wait, 8 years ago?
international support,
Oh, 80
what
years ago.
eight like
80 years ago. Oh, sorry.
yeah, I'm saying 8 years ago, and without international support, probably what was going to happen if not support of other nations, and what's going to happen was with us without the support. But we see how the trauma, this genocide against Jews, helped Israel to become a strong, independent country that now, it's surrounded by some aggressors, can stand up for itself and has a strong defense system and is very successful. So I hope the same will happen to Ukrainians as a nation and to Ukraine as a country.
Yeah, well, I'm with you 100%. And I believe it's going to happen. I think, I really mean this. Ukraine is going to come out of this and eventually be a better country. Because, by the way, the other thing we haven't talked about is that, the incredible education system in Ukraine and the invention of the Ukrainian people. I mean, there is good reason to believe that it's going to, I have to say, it's going to be a struggle for a while, but eventually it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a country of peace, and they'll rebuild, and it'll be nice. It'll be great, and people will not have to fight Russia, because Russia, by the way, is just going to be a wimpy little piece of crap that's trying to pay its bills for 20 years. They've got problems coming out of their ass. They're just going to be paying later, sadly. But I agree with you. Why not now? Why not right now? But we could sit here and talk all day, and we're not going to solve it. But we should talk again in the next few weeks and see where things have gone. And we'll see what happens. But I think it's going to work out okay. And you'll see. I mean, I want you to really think about that. Like, not just, I hope I didn't depress you too much, because you've got enough reason to be depressed. So I hope I didn't make you feel bad.
No, I really appreciate it. I do feel bad because of this recent attack on Dnipro, really. I didn't want to wake up today. It's just very depressive. It's very hard, even though I am not in Ukraine. But, every minute, every day, my country is being destroyed and my people are being killed for nothing. So, yes, it's very depressive. But do a little bit what I can. Thank you so much that you agreed to, to spend an hour with me and talking to me. And hopefully someone will see this interview, more people will see it, and maybe, it will help the cause. So just make a little bit every day. Try not to give up. Yeah.
I'm not giving up. Just so you know, I am not giving up. And I want to say one thing, and then we need to sign off because I've got to go do some stuff, and I'm sure you've got children. That is, I want to give a shout out, and we say in Hebrew, kol hakavod, which is like, all the honors to the incredible Ukrainian soldiers. Seriously, the best in the world. They, the heart and the tenacity, just to be admired. And that's all I have to say.
Slava Ukraini.
What do you say? Slava?
Slava Ukraini. They says glory to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And the other side says Heroyam Slava, which means Glory to the heroes.
Well, glory to the heroes.